He walked up to a small sweets stall, bought everything on the table, then asked a question that made the whole street fall silent. But when the vendor answered, the billionaire realized money could not buy what he wanted most. Stay tuned, because you are about to watch a beautiful story and find out what happened next. Hello family, welcome to Tales by King. Kindly subscribe to my YouTube channel for more beautiful stories. Thank you as you do so. Sit back, relax as we dive into the story. The afternoon sun hung gently in the sky, not too hot, not too cold. Willow Street was busy, filled with people walking home from work, children laughing, and cars moving slowly through traffic. The air smelled of fresh bread, sugar, and warm groundnuts from nearby stalls. At the corner of the street stood a small wooden sweets stall. It was old but clean, painted in soft white and light blue. Glass jars filled with colorful candies, biscuits, lollipops, and wrapped toffees were neatly arranged on the table. Some jars were chipped, but they were always clean and shining. Behind the stall stood Clara Moore. She was a young woman in her mid-20s, with kind brown eyes and a quiet smile that made people feel at ease. Her hair was always tied back neatly, and she wore simple dresses that showed she cared more about comfort than fashion. Clara had been running this stall for 3 years, ever since she lost both her parents to illness. The sweets stall was not just her business. It was her survival. It paid her rent. It bought her food. And on good days, it helped her support the small orphanage down the road. Many people on Willow Street knew Clara. Children loved her because she sometimes gave them free candy when they had no money. Old women liked her because she listened to their stories. Even when sales were poor, Clara never complained. That afternoon, she was counting coins quietly when the sound of a car engine stopped nearby. Not just any car. A long black luxury car rolled to a stop by the road. Its windows were dark, and its body shined like a mirror. Conversations around the street slowed. Some people turned to stare. The car door opened. A tall man stepped out. He moved with confidence, but his face was calm and serious. He wore a dark shirt, fitted trousers, and shoes that looked simple, but expensive. On his wrist was a watch that cost more than Clara earned in a year. This was Alexander Reed, a billionaire. People in the city knew his name. He owned large companies, hotels, and office buildings. He was famous for being powerful, smart, and cold. Many said he had no heart, only money. Alexander looked around the street like someone who did not belong there. Then his eyes landed on Clara's sweets stall. He walked toward it slowly. Clara looked up and was surprised, but she smiled politely. "Good afternoon, sir," she said. Alexander studied the sweets quietly. He looked at the jars, the colors, the small handwritten price tags. Then he spoke in a calm voice. "How much for all of them?" Clara blinked. "All of them?" she repeated, thinking she had heard wrong. "Yes," he said. "Every sweet on this table." Her heart skipped. No one had ever asked that before. She quickly counted in her head, then gave him the total price. Alexander reached into his pocket and paid immediately. No bargaining, no questions. People nearby whispered. Then something unexpected happened. Alexander lifted his eyes and looked straight at Clara. His voice dropped, quiet but clear. "If I buy all the sweets," he said, "will you marry me?" Time seemed to stop. The street went silent. A child dropped a candy. A woman gasped. Clara froze. Her fingers tightened around the counter as she slowly lifted her eyes to his face, unaware that the answer she was about to give would change both their lives forever. For a moment, she thought she might have heard him wrong. Her heart was beating fast, not from excitement, but from shock. People around them waited, holding their breath, eager to hear her response. Slowly, Clara placed both hands on the wooden counter. She felt the rough surface under her fingers. It reminded her where she was and who she was. She lifted her eyes and spoke gently, but clearly. "Sir," she said, "I can't marry you." A quiet wave of surprise moved through the small crowd. Alexander's brows drew together slightly. He was not used to hearing those words. Women usually smiled, laughed, or said yes before he finished speaking. But Clara's face showed no pride, no fear, only honesty. She continued, choosing her words carefully. "I sell sweets to make a living," she said. "I do not sell myself. Marriage is not something you buy." Some people nodded silently. Others looked shocked. Alexander's voice came out slower than before. "You don't even know who I am." Clara met his eyes. "That is true," she replied. "But I know what this question means. And it means you think money can decide everything." That sentence hit him harder than he expected. He opened his mouth, then closed it again. Clara took a small breath and went on. I respect you as a customer. I thank you for buying my sweets. But my heart is not part of the sale. The street felt heavy and quiet. Even the traffic noise seemed far away. Alexander looked around and realized people were watching him. For the first time in years, he felt exposed. He picked up the bag of sweets slowly. I see, he said softly. Without another word, he turned and walked back toward his car. The crowd slowly returned to their conversations, but Clara remained still, her chest rising and falling. As the black car drove away, Clara whispered to herself, I hope he understands. But inside the car, Alexander sat in silence. Her words followed him. Marriage is not something you buy. For the first time in many years, Alexander Reed did not go straight to a meeting after leaving somewhere. He did not check his phone. He did not call his assistant. He did not even tell the driver to speed up. He just sat in the back seat, staring out of the window as the city moved past him. Clara's voice kept playing in his head. Marriage is not something you buy. My heart is not part of the sale. It annoyed him at first. Not because she was rude, she was not. What annoyed him was that she was right. And deep down he knew it. Alexander had grown up in a house where love was always mixed with pressure. His father had taught him only one rule. People respect power. Money gives power. So never be weak. Alexander followed that rule until it became his whole life. He built an empire. He won contracts. He became a billionaire before 40. But he also became lonely without admitting it. Women smiled around him, but he always felt their eyes counting his money, not seeing his heart. That night, Alexander returned to his penthouse. The apartment was beautiful, glass walls, soft lights, expensive furniture. But it felt empty. The quiet was too loud. He poured a drink, but he didn't touch it. He walked to the window, looking down at the city. Thousands of lights, thousands of lives. And yet, his mind stayed on one small corner of Willow Street, and one woman behind a sweet stall. He barely slept. The next morning, his assistant, Martin, noticed something strange. Sir, Martin said carefully, you missed 2 calls from the board. Alexander answered without looking up. Move the meeting to tomorrow. Martin blinked. Tomorrow, sir? Yes, Alexander said. And cancel my lunch. Martin wanted to ask questions, but Alexander's face told him not to. Instead, Alexander did something he had never done before. He went out alone. No security. No driver. Just him, a dark jacket, and a simple cap pulled low. He didn't want attention. He didn't want people whispering. He just wanted to see her again, without the crowd, without the drama. When he reached Willow Street, it was late afternoon again. Clara's stall was open. The jars were lined neatly, just like yesterday. A small line of children stood nearby, holding coins tightly in their little hands. Clara was helping them patiently. One at a time, she said with a warm smile. No pushing. Alexander watched from a distance. She wasn't pretending to be kind. She truly was. A little boy dropped his money, and it rolled under the stall. The boy panicked and looked like he might cry. Clara quickly knelt, picked up the coin, dusted it off, and placed it gently in his palm. There, she said. Don't worry. It didn't run away. The boy laughed, and Clara laughed too. Alexander felt something twist inside him again, something soft, something unfamiliar. Then he walked closer. Clara looked up and froze for half a second. She recognized him immediately. Her smile faded slightly, not from hatred, but from caution. Good afternoon, Alexander said, keeping his voice calm and respectful. Clara nodded slowly. Good afternoon, sir. Alexander looked at the jars like a normal customer, even though his heart was beating faster than he wanted to admit. He pointed at a small wrapped candy. How much for that one? Clara blinked again. That's 50 cents, she replied. He reached into his pocket and paid properly, placing the money in her small cash box. No big cash. No drama. No showing off. Clara watched him closely, confused. He held the candy in his palm like it mattered. I'm not here to propose, he said quietly. Clara's eyes narrowed slightly. Then why are you here? Alexander looked at her for a moment, then answered honestly. Because I handled yesterday badly, he said. And because your answer stayed in my head all night. Clara didn't reply immediately. She simply stood there, listening. Alexander continued, careful with his words. I'm used to people saying yes, he admitted. Not because they want to, but because they are afraid, or because they want something from me. Clara's face softened just a little, but she still stayed quiet. I asked you a question that was unfair, he said. I treated your life like it was something I could buy. Clara swallowed. Her fingers tightened slightly around the edge of the table. Then she spoke, her voice calm but firm. You embarrassed me, she said softly. And you embarrassed yourself too. Alexander nodded once. I know. The way he said it sounded real. No pride. No anger. Clara studied him for a long moment, as if she was deciding whether this was another rich man's game. Finally, she said, people like you don't come to places like this for no reason. Alexander looked down at the candy in his hand, then back at her. I'm trying to learn, he said. And I don't even know how. Clara's eyes held his. And what do you want from me, mister? Reed, he said. Alexander Reed. The name made the air shift again. A woman passing behind them stopped and whispered. That's him, but Clara didn't turn her head. She kept her focus on Alexander's face. Clara took a slow breath. I don't want trouble, she said. I'm just a sweets vendor. Alexander's voice was quiet. And I don't want another person to look at me and only see money, he said. Yesterday you didn't do that. Clara said nothing. Then Alexander made a small request, simple but strange coming from a billionaire. Can I come back tomorrow, he asked. And just talk? Not about marriage. Not about money. Just talk like normal people. Clara's heart beat faster again. She didn't know why, but she could feel he was serious. She looked at the street, then at him. Tomorrow, she repeated slowly. Alexander nodded. Yes, if you allow it. Clara hesitated, then answered carefully. You can come, she said. But if you come with pride again, don't bother. Alexander's lips moved slightly, almost like a small smile. I understand, he said. He turned to leave. But before he walked away, Clara heard herself speak again. And Mr. Reed. He paused and looked back. Clara's voice was soft. Don't come here because you feel guilty. Come here only if you truly want to change. Alexander held her gaze for a second, then gave a slow, respectful nod. I will, he said. Then he walked away, the small candy still in his hand. And Clara stood behind her stall, feeling confused. Because for the first time, she wasn't just wondering what a billionaire wanted. She was wondering if a billionaire could actually become a better man. And somewhere deep inside Alexander Reed, as he walked down Willow Street, a new truth was forming. He had spent his whole life buying everything. But Clara Moore was the first person who made him realize. Some things can only be earned. The next afternoon, Clara woke up with a strange feeling in her chest. She told herself it was nothing. She told herself Alexander Reed was only a rich man playing a new game. But as she washed her face and tied her hair back neatly, she kept remembering his eyes yesterday. How calm they were, how different his voice sounded when he admitted he was wrong. Still, Clara did not let her thoughts lead her. She had learned to be careful. She had watched people promise things they never meant. She had watched men act kind only to later become cruel. And after losing her parents, she had promised herself one thing. No one would ever use her heart as a toy. By late afternoon, she opened her stall on Willow Street like always. She cleaned the table, arranged the jars, and wrote the small price tags with her neat handwriting. The street slowly filled with noise again, cars, footsteps, and people calling out greetings. Clara tried to focus on business. But then she saw him. Alexander was walking down the street toward her, just like yesterday. No luxury car. No suit. No crowd of bodyguards. Just him, in a plain dark shirt and simple trousers, carrying a small paper bag in his hand. Clara's heart jumped, but her face stayed calm. He stopped in front of her stall and gave a small nod. Good afternoon, Clara, he said. Clara was surprised he remembered her name. Good afternoon, Mr. Reed, she replied. He placed the paper bag on the counter carefully, like it was something important. I brought something, he said. Clara looked at the bag cautiously. What is it? Alexander opened it slowly. Inside were small packs of sweets, simple ones, the kind children loved. There were also a few little juice packs. Clara frowned. Why did you bring this? Alexander's voice was gentle. Yesterday, I watched you give free candy to children who didn't have enough money. Clara's throat tightened slightly. She didn't like being watched, but something about his tone did not feel judgmental. It felt respectful. I asked the lady at the corner store what children usually like, he continued. She helped me choose these. Clara looked at him. You did all that? He nodded. Yes. I thought maybe you could use them for the children who come here. For a moment, Clara did not speak. She slowly touched one of the packs, then looked back at him. "You didn't have to do this," she said quietly. "I know," Alexander replied. "That's why I wanted to." Clara felt her chest soften a little, but she did not show too much. She had been disappointed before. She knew kindness could be temporary. She cleared her throat. "Thank you," she said. "But I still don't understand why you keep coming." Alexander leaned back slightly, as if he had been waiting for that question. "Because I need to learn how to be human again," he said simply. Clara's eyes widened a little. He continued, slowly, like each word mattered. "My whole life, people have treated me like a walking bank. If I smile, they want money. If I talk, they want connection to my name. If I offer help, they want more and more." Clara listened quietly. The street noise became distant again. Alexander looked down for a moment, then added, "I've never been sure if anyone liked me or just liked what I could give." Clara didn't know what to say. A billionaire complaining about loneliness sounded strange. But his face did not look like he was acting. His eyes looked tired, like a man who had been living in a loud world with no real peace. Clara spoke slowly. "Then why did you ask me to marry you yesterday?" Alexander's jaw tightened. He didn't get angry. He looked ashamed. "Because I panicked," he admitted. "I felt something I didn't understand. You looked at me like I was just a man. Not a prize. Not a wallet." Clara swallowed. Alexander continued. "And I did what I always do when I don't understand something. I tried to control it with money." Clara's fingers pressed into the counter. She remembered the silence on the street, the eyes on her, the shock in her stomach. "That was wrong," Alexander said, his voice low. "And I'm sorry." Clara searched his face carefully. She wanted to believe him, but she feared believing too quickly. Just then, the wind blew, and one of Clara's jars almost tipped over. Clara quickly grabbed it, but it was heavy. Alexander stepped forward at once and steadied it with his hand. Their fingers brushed for a second. Clara pulled back quickly, feeling heat rise to her cheeks. Alexander noticed, but he didn't smile or tease her. He simply stepped back again, giving her space. That small act, giving her space, made Clara's heart shake in a way she didn't expect. Because most men who wanted something from her would push closer. But Alexander did not. He waited. A few minutes later, a group of children ran to the stall, laughing. They held small coins, excited to buy candy. Clara greeted them warmly. Alexander stood slightly to the side, watching quietly. One little girl tugged his sleeve and looked up at him. "Uncle," she asked innocently, "are you buying sweets too?" Alexander looked down at her, surprised. He had never been called uncle by any child before. He nodded slowly. "Yes," he said. "I think I am." The little girl smiled. "Then you are good," she said simply, then ran back to Clara. Alexander looked stunned. Clara saw it in his face. A child's simple words had touched him more than business awards or newspaper praise ever did. After the children left, Clara began packing the extra sweets he brought into a small box under the table. She said quietly, "They will be happy." Alexander nodded, his voice soft. "That's all I wanted." Then a silence fell between them, comfortable, but full of feelings neither of them wanted to name yet. Finally, Alexander spoke again. "Clara," he said. She looked up. His eyes were steady, not bold, not proud. "I don't want to rush you," he said. "I don't want to force anything." Clara did not answer. She only listened. Alexander took a slow breath. "So I will ask you for something smaller," he said. "Something honest." Clara's heart beat faster. "What?" she asked. Alexander's voice was calm, but there was fear hidden in it. "Can I take you to dinner tomorrow evening?" he asked. "Not to impress you. Not to buy you. Just to know you better." Clara's eyes searched his. She could feel the street watching again, but this time it didn't feel like shame. It felt like a new beginning standing at the edge of her life. She hesitated. Then she answered carefully. "One dinner," she said. "Public place. Simple." Alexander nodded quickly, like he was grateful for even that. "Yes," he said. "Anything you want." The next day they ate at a small, quiet restaurant. Not a rich place, not a fancy place. Just a clean place with warm food and soft music. Clara watched Alexander closely the whole time. And Alexander surprised her again. He didn't talk about business. He didn't brag. He didn't even mention his money. He asked her about her parents, her childhood, her dreams. Clara spoke slowly at first, but then her words began to flow. She told him about her mother's laughter, her father's kindness, and how the stall was the last thing that made her feel close to them. Alexander listened like a man who truly cared. When she finished, he didn't rush to speak. He simply said, "Thank you for trusting me with that." Clara looked down, feeling her eyes sting. Nobody had said that to her in a long time. After dinner, Alexander walked her back to Willow Street. The night air was cool, and the street lights glowed softly. They stopped near her stall. Clara unlocked the small gate and turned to him. "Mr. Reed," she said, "you're different from what I expected." Alexander gave a small, sad smile. "And you're stronger than anyone I've ever met," he replied. Clara looked away, unsure how to respond. Then Alexander did something Clara did not expect. He stepped back, keeping a respectful distance. And he spoke quietly, like his words were meant only for her. "Clara," he said, "I won't ask you to marry me again, not like yesterday." Clara's heart thumped. He continued, "If love ever grows between us, it must grow slowly. With respect. With truth." Clara's throat tightened. She could not explain why those words made her feel safe. Alexander looked at her with steady eyes. "So here is my new question," he said softly. "Not the loud question of a billionaire showing off, but the humble question of a man learning to love properly. Will you give me a chance," he asked, "to prove that I can be the kind of man you would be proud to stand beside?" Clara stared at him. The night felt quiet. Her mind remembered all her fears. But her heart remembered how he stepped back when she pulled away. How he listened. How he apologized. How he waited. Clara took a slow breath, feeling tears rise without permission. Then she nodded gently. "Yes," she whispered. Alexander's shoulders dropped like a heavy burden had been removed. He didn't shout. He didn't celebrate loudly. He only smiled, small, real, and full of relief. And in that moment, Clara understood something she had never believed before. A man could have all the money in the world, and still be willing to kneel in humility, just to earn one honest chance at love. Because this time, the billionaire didn't try to buy her heart. He tried to deserve it. That brings us to the end of this video. I hope you find this story worth watching. If you do, kindly subscribe to my YouTube channel for more beautiful stories, like, comment, and share this video to your friends and loved ones. Your support and engagement encourage me to post more videos. Thanks for watching.